This is a demonstration of Wirecast.
If you want to.
But if you're gonna do it at the senior center, I can go to the senior center. You know, like we'll get more special attention. If you really want to learn stuff like that, you can always call me and say, show me how to do X. And
This is a demonstration of Wirecast.
But I'm not trying to throw no shade on you or anything, but you know, you've been down this road before. But yeah, so. And so. Okay.
You don't have to take pictures, don't worry about it.
This is a demonstration of Wirecast.
So they're going to be sending lots of stuff on all different kinds of things. Okay. So I don't want to be a father to other folks. I'd like to be able to do it on my own. You can pay me so that you can volunteer. And I actually have.
So, during the Q&A, Michelle may have people from who's watching the broadcast who may have questions. If that's okay, if she, just kind of cue to you, hey, we got a question or whatever.
Excellent.
Awesome.
Writing, okay, and reading. I was tired of making that noise, so now it just knocks. Oh, I was like,
This is a demonstration of Wirecast.
But yeah, that's exactly what that is. So I'll turn that off.
This is a demonstration of Wirecast.
Okay. Cameras up. Looks like we're.
This is a demonstration of Wirecast.
Yes, I did.
This is a demonstration of Wirecast.
Yeah.
The camera keeps turning. I want the banner, which is why I put it over here. There we go.
This is a demonstration of Wirecast.
Start typing, the camera will jump. Yeah? It's still. I know what I can do. There we go.
demonstration of Wirecast.
I was, yeah. But you weren't. Because I just want to stay so, good to see you.
This is a demonstration of Wirecast.
Okay, it'll be likely right over here.
These chairs, everybody said, what's your work to you? These chairs mean work to you. These chairs.
David, I can anchor this to this and then pull my computer down.
Point it out.
Oh, Dr. Turner. Oh, wow. Oh, thank you. Oh, no. Man, well, let's say the
Demonstration of Wirecast.
Since when?
Going on 3 years now.
You left the country.
Left LA. I moved to Atlanta for a couple of years. I did some work down there, stay with my family a little bit, catch up. And then moved to DC, but I'm actually interviewing for a position at UVA tomorrow. So I might come around background.
Yeah, what position?
In the theater department, professor of directing.
This is a demonstration of Wirecast.
You feel pretty good about it? I see.
Thank you for calling.
Oh, I wouldn't miss that.
I have repeated the bullets are in the kitchen stories so many times. So many times. I might even have to repeat it again today, just in your honor. I hadn't really talked about it. Now it's
This is a
real.
demonstration of Wirecast.
But yes, I have funny enough, I'm all kinds of converged on this painting out week, and so I'm technically still on faculty here because I was a visiting professor last year, and they just never took me off, and I thought that was something I would do. No. Oh, you know what? In the same line. Instead of film focus,
This
it's
is a
back to
demonstration of Wirecast.
right there. But this is, no, this is Dr. Turner. He was the dean of the African American Studies. What was your title before you retired, Dr. Turner? What was your title before you retired? I'm like, yeah, just the other crossman. Come join us, please. Dr. Turner, this is Maria Golden, extraordinary writer. Just a wonderful voice.
This is a demonstration of Wirecast.
You've been here before, haven't you?
I've been to Charlottesville.
I mean, you've been to.
Yeah.
Where are you now?
I was stepped out of that.
You still writing?
Yeah. Next year.
University of Virginia in 2006. And so I attended for the time why they came to stay. Because during my tenure,
This is a demonstration of Wirecast.
the highest graduation rates in African American institutions. And so I got reflections from 160 students. And I'm trying to put all that together. But you know, as well we got to know right now, the hardest thing about construction.
Well, it is a form of construction.
It is. It's a form of construction. And it's, people can go
This is a demonstration of Wirecast.
Yes, this is.
What I was going to today, I included something, when you include something, you say, God, why did I do that before? I included another chapter. But the chapter is about the community. I'm also the president of the African Marshal of the NAACP. I've been there for 12 years, 14 years. I reflected on that, but what I haven't reflected on was
This is a demonstration of Wirecast.
not just with African Americans in the community, because the kind of things that we go through in our community is no different than many other communities across the country. Whether it's health, education, or whatever it is. There's something special about this community that I need to address in my conclusion. So I'm really looking forward to it. I'm making some progress.
This is a demonstration of Wirecast.
Don't beat yourself up. Even if you write a couple times a week, that's fine.
And the joy I feel right now.
You know what I used to think? I used to think, somebody can write this. Oh, you know something? Nobody can write this. Because I got my own story. I was the dean of African American Film. Nobody else the dean at the time.
This is a demonstration of Wirecast.
So I'm not worried about somebody doing something. Because they can't write without me.
I like that. Well, I have like, okay, sounds great.
Nice meeting you.
Is this on or? Is this on? Is this one on? Hopefully. No,
This is a demonstration of Wirecast.
maybe I'll just sit here. Yeah, I'll just use it. I was trying to be, dramatic.
We can be casual. Yeah. We best of friends now.
Well, welcome everyone. My name is Marita Golden, and it's my pleasure to serve as moderator for today's reading and discussion by Terésa Dowell-Vest, who will be reading from and discussing
This is
her
a demonstration
book,
of
The Death of
Wirecast.
Cliff Huxtable, 1937 to 2015, So We Can Survive Bill Cosby. A very provocative and timely title and book, and I'm very, very pleased to be here with Terésa. Terésa is the founder of Diva Blue Productions and Publications and is a professor of communications at Prince George's Community College. She lives in Washington, D.C. with her wife, Michelle.
This
And their
is a
dog,
demonstration of Wirecast.
Before we get started, I've been asked to just make a few announcements. One, thanking the sponsors and hosts for the festival. Of course, asking everyone to silence your cell phones. And at the conclusion of the program, please fill out this evaluation. I think they're on the desk in the back. Fill it out. It's very short, won't take very long, and hand it to one of the volunteers.
This is a demonstration
So
of
we're going to start, and
Wirecast.
actually, Terésa, you've hooked us up to the internet, right?
I have. I'm very excited about this. So I want to personally thank the Virginia Festival of the Book for allowing us the opportunity to experiment with live streaming. None of the other programs, as far as I know, will be using live streaming tech, which hopefully next year, all of the events will be using live streaming technology because
This is a demonstration
broadens
of
the scope.
Wirecast.
It furthers the reach of this amazing, amazing festival. I'm from Charlottesville originally. I'm a child of Albemarle County, and the comings of spring was marked by the Dogwood Festival and the Virginia Festival of the Book. And it is beyond my excitement and pleasure to present today, and certainly to bring this technology because I want everyone
This
to the
is
moon
a
and back to see
demonstration of
what we do here
Wirecast.
in Charlottesville so incredibly well. Okay. Thank you so much to Marita Golden for introducing and having this discussion with me today about a character, a family that I love dearly. Chapter 1, Theo.
This is a demonstration of Wirecast.
The house is quiet. The dimmer switch in the living room sets the lights to a brown glow as the sun sets on the Brooklyn brownstone, number 10 Stigwood. The double doors seal in the comfort of family values and laughter, of kindness and grace. The house is quiet. At 4:35 p.m., one of the front doors opened and in walks Theo. He manages to get away from the crowd
This is a
and meets everyone
demonstration of
home.
Wirecast.
He walks into a quiet house. He stands in the doorway and takes a moment to breathe in the silence. He has never done that before. His usual entrance was always chaotic, urgent. His usual entrance was with tales of what next thing he must have, a Gordon Gartrell shirt, a helicopter ride for prom, a way to make up with Justine. This was the first time he walks into a quiet home alone.
This is a
The only
demonstration
thing
of
he wants
Wirecast.
this time, for his father to be home. The house is quiet. Theo steps in and gently shuts the door behind him. He takes a few steps into the living room and speaks out. Dad? He takes a long pause before continuing. Theo was never one for praying, so this seems a little ridiculous to him. I don't know where you
This is
are.
a demonstration of Wirecast.
We rarely spoke of God, of heaven, or hell. So I'm taking a chance that you can hear me, that my voice is reaching you. There isn't much time before the rest get here, so I didn't know what to say at the cemetery. I had nothing to say at the cemetery. You're not there. Your body is, but you
This
You're not
is a
there.
demonstration of
I know that. I
Wirecast.
know you're here. You're here in this house, in this home you made for us. This home you made with us. Theo walks towards the couch and lightly grazes his fingers across the table where the house phone used to sit. He continues. Okay, so thank you. Thank you for loving us. Thank you for teaching us. Thank you for
This is a
loving our
demonstration of
mother and
Wirecast.
raising us. These are the easy things I can say because they are true and real. Thank you for teaching us how to be the best citizens we can be in this awful, awful world. Well, it's not really an awful world, but today it feels awful. It feels awful because it's too hard without love. You taught me that. This is a hard world without love.
This is a
You taught me to be
demonstration of
easy in
Wirecast.
hard times, and I didn't know until now what the hard times really were. You taught me to dance and joke and to hug my wife and protect my sisters, but there were things you did not teach me. You didn't teach me about the ways of hate. You failed me there, Dad. I had to find out in a world outside this haven that I am a Black man. I didn't learn the rules and responsibilities that may
This
save
is
my
a
life
demonstration
being
of
a Black
Wirecast.
man. There are lessons I must teach my son and my male students I never learned from you. So you taught me about the value of money, but you didn't teach me about the value of my life. We were constantly reminded of how much things cost, how much money we, the kids, didn't have, and how much you and Mom had or made. And you taught us valuable lessons in a world of no worries. And I left this house a Huxtable.
This is a demonstration
And I
of
stepped out into that
Wirecast.
world, outside those doors, a Black man. And I was not prepared. And I needed you to teach me that too. One day I decided to ask Walter how come we called him, or how he came to be called Cockroach, and why he stopped coming by. And this was about a year ago after your first stroke. And he came to see you. out of
This is a
respect for you,
demonstration of
from me.
Wirecast.
And we had a chance to talk after many years of not talking. And he said he was surprised I asked because I never seemed to care before. I asked him why he would allow anyone to call him that, to call him cockroach, low and dirty. He said, it never sounds so poor until the Huxtables said it. See, in the hood, I was someone everyone called cockroach. In the Huxtable house,
This is a
I was
demonstration of
something
Wirecast.
called cockroach. And there was a difference. Your mother made it a point to call me Walter because she was above calling me cockroach. And your pops, he called me cockroach, but it dripped with disdain. And I couldn't bear it any longer. I was the cockroach in the Huxtable house, and I had to leave. Now, you were a good friend, but you lived by a standard I knew nothing about, nor did I care to know anything about it. But you should thank your dad for protecting you from a life that taught me
This
how
is
to be a black
demonstration
man in
of
America.
Wirecast.
It's an ugly lesson, but I'm so grateful to have been taught. See, in that moment, I realized the truth, Dad. I'm the black man America loves, and he's the black man America fears. You see, cockroach taught me how to dance. You taught me how to perform. No one ever accused me of being a black man when I was under your wing. Too many days, I wanted to be more cockroach and less Cliff, but the
This
politics
is a
of respectability
demonstration
is
of
a mighty
Wirecast.
teacher, Dad. It was important to have the right friends and for the girls to date the right men and for us to sit around and listen to the elders muse about the civil rights movement. But where are you? Theo shouts out in an emotional breakdown. The tears and the sobbing are new and unstoppable. Through his attempts to catch his breath while weeping, Father, where are you?
This is a
I need you
demonstration
now.
of
I need you to show
Wirecast.
me how to survive the police and the dodging bullets and the noose of men who hate. I need you to help me find the words to explain to my son how women are not to be raped. I need you to help me be a man in this awful, awful world. And I need you to show me how to be a black person in this awful, awful world. Theo continues to walk around the room to the chair closest to the kitchen door, facing the
This
front
is a
door.
demonstration of
Sits
Wirecast.
down in the chair, as if sliding into his father's shoes. In his father's house, he continues. Dad, the girls, the women are all grown and married, or not, and are mothers, or not, and aunts, and they are good. They are leaders,
This
and they
is
are
a
educators,
demonstration
and
of
they are healers,
Wirecast.
and they are so much like Mom. Any moment they will walk through that door and they will be reminded of the great man you are through the tears and the hugs and the stories of that time when Cliff. We will be comforted by the love so many have for you. They will reminisce the good days and the good times and romanticize the days of you being the great Dr.
This is a
Cliff
demonstration
Huxtable.
of Wirecast.
I will remember my dad. I will mourn my father. I will honor the man who was gentle and kind. I will remember a man who so many got to know as the happy baby doctor with the most well-adjusted seeming family in Brooklyn. I will remember a man who showed us the best of the world, showed us the best the world could be, and kept the truth of that awful, awful world locked outside those
This is
double
a
doors.
demonstration of
And when those doors
Wirecast.
open, and when the grieving enter, I will greet them, and you will leave. You will be gone forever. But before you go, thank you. Rest well, Dr. Heathcliff Huxtable. Theo slowly stands from the chair. He straightens his jacket. He
This
wipes
is
the
a
tears from his
demonstration of
eyes,
Wirecast.
giving the impression of his strength. He stands, watching the doors, waiting for them to swing open, marking the beginning of the repast and the end of an era. The house is quiet.
Well, we're gonna talk
This is a
shortly
demonstration
about
of
why it was so
Wirecast.
moving, and particularly moving for you. One of the reasons I was glad to be asked, I have a panel tomorrow, but then the festival approached me since I was going to be here, would I moderate this? One of the reasons I was so glad to be asked to do this is because it introduced me to a form of fiction that I really was not very familiar with, and that is fan fiction. And it also gives me an opportunity
This is a
to meet a
demonstration
new
of
writer, a
Wirecast.
terrific writer. And I think that for some people in the audience who may be like me, uninitiated into fan fiction, before we delve into the Cosby, Huxtable, persona, psychosis, la la la, let's talk about what fan fiction is, a definition of that.
Sure. Fan fiction is a gift, quite frankly, an opportunity for writers to pay homage to existing works, existing characters, existing universes that really, I think it's been around for many, many decades, but really took off, I'd say, as a genre in the 80s, as more and more people fell in love with Star Wars in particular, after the original, what we call now The New Hope, because it's part 4 in the series. More and more people were curious about the universe that George Lucas created, but without being able to participate in their own way, kind of locked into this very particular narrative that was Star Wars, and then later it would be Harry Potter or any of the Anne Rice books or Twilight, the list goes on. And so this becomes an opportunity in the 80s for a lot of writers to participate in the storytelling and the narratives of characters that we love. It took off as a commercial endeavor in the 90s with Buffy the Vampire Slayer. As a television show, more and more people were just curious about the different tentacles of vampires and demons and witches and the relationships of these women and the different universes, and just created their own kind of repertoire of storytelling. Does it kind of fall on that line of copyright infringement? And that's still the debate. There are a lot of writers who are champions for fan fiction because it expands the scope and the reach of their characters and their material. J.K. Rowling, for instance, has shared the readings of people who have expanded the Harry Potter universe, for instance. Whereas Anne Rice, she kind of rails against it because she feels like, well, this is my material and I've created it. So it's one of those things where taking these characters that exist and creating your own context, your own elements to it, it's all in paying homage to characters and to a storytelling, a narrative that I care a lot about.
And I think it's a testimony also to the tremendous influence of television and of film as a kind of literature that really shapes our lives in a very, very deep way. Now the book grew out of a blog, so share with us, the genesis of this.
Sure. Last summer, when I would say by that point, the 30th woman or the 35th woman who came forward and said she had been assaulted by, she had an experience with, she'd had some devastating encounter with
This
Bill
is a
Cosby, I
demonstration
just
of
couldn't,
Wirecast.
I couldn't have the same debate over and over on Facebook, on Twitter, about the difference between Bill Cosby and Cliff Huxtable. So many people were like, there's no way these women, he's being set up, and there's no way these women were sexually assaulted or drugged or raped by Bill Cosby. There's no way that happened. These women are all floozies and the name calling and the shaming, and it just reached this apex
This
in
is
my
a
ear where I
demonstration
just
of
couldn't.
Wirecast.
I couldn't engage in the conversations anymore because I kept asking one singular question. Do you know Bill Cosby? And by and large, the answer repeatedly was, he's America's dad. He's this guy with this great family, and he's got 5 kids, and and I said, okay, you've done a great job explaining who Cliff Huxtable is. Do you know Bill Cosby?
This is a demonstration of Wirecast.
Sometimes you'd have this moment of breakthrough and the light goes on and you're like, okay, this person gets it, and we're engaging in a conversation. Because I also was having a hard time burning down, the Cosby lexicon of work myself, though. I was really torn, and so I participated in these conversations because I think it just opened up some opportunity for healing and getting past the struggle for myself. But it was those people who were just like, who just wouldn't let it go. They just saw Cliff Huxtable when they saw Bill Cosby. So I decided to kill him. I was like, I can't do much with Bill Cosby, but let me show you what I can do with Cliff Huxtable. And here we are. So on my blog site, I was actually on the phone doing an interview. It was digital. July it was like this new digital use month or something, and I was being interviewed as being a blogger, an educator who uses Twitter in class, who encourages my students to live tweet in class. Why take it away from them? It's their language. You may as well just use it, right? So we're having a conversation on a radio show, and just before we go on, I started sketching these notes in the draft section of my blog site, thinking, what would it look like if he died? What would his funeral look like? Who would go? Would the repast be at the house? Who would manage the repast? Would it be Claire? It would be the new man of the house. It would be Theo. And so I imagined Theo getting home before everyone else and just wrote a blog post. It was only to be one blog post. That was my commitment. That was all I could do because I'm writing through my tears. You saw I was having a hard time finishing that chapter. As I was typing it, I felt it in my spirit that I was assassinating someone that I cared about, and it was personal. And so then I do the radio show, and I'm choking back tears, and I tell the young lady who I met a couple times before, I may have a hard time because I'm preoccupied and thinking about something else. She was like, all right, well, do what you got to do. And I explained to her before we went on the air what I was working on. She's like, you've got to explain that. You've got to say something about it. And I was like, okay, well, let me hit post. I hit post and did the show. After the show was over, 500 people had already read it in that first hour. In the first week, we were up to about 5,000 people. And it just kept kind of ballooning because people were having this visceral release of the separation. I don't have to defend Bill Cosby through the lens of Cliff Huxtable. And so then I was inundated with text messages and emails. Do another one. Do somebody else. And by and large, the popular do somebody else was Denise.
This is a demonstration
primarily
of
because
Wirecast.
there was so much speculation behind why Lisa Bonet left the show, came back to the show, left the show, came back to the show. She did Angel Heart, where she performed in a sex scene. She was partially nude. She married Lenny Kravitz. All these elements that didn't feel good to Cosby, and he was very vocal about it. And so the next day, that night, I spent the night being a little bit more deliberate in my storytelling. It
This
wasn't
is a
so
demonstration of
impulsive, I guess.
Wirecast.
And I spent the night crafting Denise, posted it the next morning at about 10 a.m. and again another 5,000 people by the end of the day. So I realized I had something that people seem to need to kind of help them through yet another newscast of another woman. And regardless of where you stood on that particular issue, where we were all in common is that we had this family in common.
This is a
And we had this
demonstration of
legacy of
Wirecast.
a lot of the response that I received came from people who were about my age, who were children in the 70s, teenagers in the 80s, and college in the 90s. We're like the thread of the work of Bill Cosby. We're children of the 70s watching Fat Albert and the Cosby Kids and the Electric Company. Mm-hmm. We're teenagers in the 80s, and we're the age of the Huxtable kids. We're the same age as Theo.
This is
we
a demonstration
want to look exactly
of
like
Wirecast.
Denise when we go to school the next day. We have younger siblings like Vanessa and Rudy that we just can't be bothered with. And then we're in college with the kids from a different world at the same time. I went to a PWI, a predominantly white institution. I went to James Madison University, had a great time at JMU. 7% African American in 1990, from 1990 to 94. 7% African American. I think it's 4% now.
This is a demonstration
Every
of
Thursday
Wirecast.
night at 8:30, that 7% would sit in the student union together and watch A Different World, and we felt like an HBCU, a historically black college university, and it was real. We hugged each other, we brought chicken and pizza, and somebody always, it's nice, so we had wine coolers, and Bill Cosby was woven through the tapestry of our lives. And I think when I started to post these characters living
This is a
at
demonstration
the time
of
2015
Wirecast.
and illustrating how they came through 9/11, how they deal with Black Lives Matter, what the world looks like to that family now. And it just continued to blossom and grow.
You alluded to, the politics of respectability, and talk a little more about that in terms of,
This is a demonstration of
because one of the things you had
Wirecast.
to do was you had to move beyond the characters as they were on the program, because this is a novel, so you bring in your imagination to it. So talk about the challenges and the opportunities for you as a writer in terms of dealing with someone like, Claire, this, iconic, perfect mother, and the rest of them in terms of putting your stamp on them.
Sure.
And particularly that issue of respectability. I remember when the
This
show
is a
came on,
demonstration
the show
of
actually, the
Wirecast.
Bill Cosby show was actually controversial because I'll never forget, there was a article in the New York Times where a cultural critic declared that the show was like science fiction. That is, it was so unbelievable that a black family could have this level of affluence, this level of education. Also, the show was controversial. Oh God, I can't remember the black filmmaker
This is a demonstration of
did a
Wirecast.
fantastic documentary about TV shows in the 80s, the age of Reagan, and talked about the dichotomy that it was under Reagan when so much of the civil rights legacy was being dismantled. It was under Reagan when the economic disparities, homelessness, all of this was being really exaggerated. That this iconic black family that in
This is
some
a
ways was
demonstration of
colorless
Wirecast.
to some people. Black people could see the coded things in it,
Sure.
but the largely white audience couldn't. The dichotomy of that being America's favorite show at a time when the black community really was under siege. Talk about it.
Talk about it. She
Yeah,
said, talk about it.
Talk about it, sister. But first, the whole issue of developing those characters.
Sure. The politics of respectability, I think stems
This
all the way
is a
back to
demonstration
W.E.B. Du
of
Bois, if
Wirecast.
not further, but certainly W.E.B. Du Bois gave it an academic sort of context. The whole idea that Black art is to illustrate what we aspire to be, as opposed to Alan Loke, or Alan Loke, depending on whose class you were in, Alan Loke was the very opposite school of thinking, that Black art should be as we are. So Alan Loke's idea was bring the drums, bring the indigenous dances of our original tribes. W.B. Du Bois, however, he was like, be much more refined. Learn the instruments of the Europeans and the and Asians, and learn languages that are outside the scope of your community, and show the world what we can be and not just who we are. And both of those schools of thinking make us the dynamic people that we are, but they also can run ingrained with each other, opposite the grain of each other. So then we get these television shows, jumping forward to, say, the 1970s, we get a show like Good Times. And Good Times is of the Alan Loke school of thinking, showing people as they were living in Chicago, Cabrini Green projects, not showing anything unfiltered. It is exactly what it is. And it may be ugly and it may be hard, but it is exactly what this family endures. And a lot of people related to the Evans family because in a lot of ways it shed a light in a very unapologetic and fearless kind of way of what a demographic of Black folks were enduring in America. With Cosby, he had it in his mind that he really wanted to go the W.E.B. Du Bois route. He and his wife together crafted this show of aspiration, crafted this show to illustrate that
is a demonstration of Wirecast.
You mean his real wife, Camille?
Camille Cosby, right. Really crafting, who did I say?
You said his wife.
Oh, okay.
I just want to make sure.
Wife.
Yeah. See, I'm getting so hung up on the clarity.
Right, exactly. Yeah, exactly. Well, wanting to create the Huxtables as a depiction of our greatest aspirations, our greatest goals, where we could be, defying the odds, defying the notion that we are only as what our limitations set up. Exactly. And so that ruffled a lot of feathers in the 80s, primarily because we're living in a time of Reaganomics. We're living in a time where the crack epidemic, the birth of HIV and AIDS, things that they didn't touch on at all on that show, and purposely so. That haven at 10 Stigwood was impenetrable.
This is a demonstration
and
of
safe.
Wirecast.
And it gave us as viewers, and I think this is why it worked so well, it gave us a half hour of voyeurism, of escapism. I grew up in the mountains in Cosbyville, right down the road here in Albemarle County. And we never wanted for anything. My siblings and I never knew we were poor until we went someplace else and saw somebody else what they had. But it wasn't until we started to see the Cosby Show that we saw something that looked incredibly foreign to us.
This is a demonstration of Wirecast.
On a Saturday, we danced every Saturday to Soul Train. We watched the groups come through, and we saw a lot of teenage kids who were dressed and danced, and we tried to dance like them. And that's where we got our Alan Loke for the week. But on Thursday, we got our W.E.B. Du Bois. Because the Huxtable kids didn't look anything like the Soul Train kids. And the balance, though, felt good. It wasn't until, I'd say,
this is a demonstration of Wirecast.
Until about 2 years ago that I first heard this term of politics of respectability. As we start to see Black person after Black person, young male after young male in particular, and then we start to see more and more females come to play, of young Black people being beaten, killed by law enforcement. Trayvon Martin, being the first, technically George Zimmerman, we won't get into who he is in the world, but that seemed to be like the launch of a new
This
conversation
is a demonstration of Wirecast.
of an old problem in America. And being an educator, being a professor, being a filmmaker, being a writer, students who are in public spaces with that are predominantly white, were kind of encouraged not to rock the boat too much, don't complain too much. Maybe if that person didn't resist arrest, they wouldn't be dead. You start to hear these things. And so this polite behavior, this polite conversation, so that I don't piss anyone off when I say F the police in the NWA way, you start to use a whole different language that, again, is in keeping with W.B. Du Bois. And it's politics of respectability. I don't want to show the hood part or the street part or the dangerous part. I don't necessarily want you to think that I might, cuss you out or hit you over the head because you don't agree with how I feel about the way the world looks. And so we start to measure our communication.
Of Wirecast.
When I learned that term and I understood what it meant, I understood then the damage the Cosby Show had done. I pause before I say that because I feel like it's still such an important part of my life. But I feel like the things that I mentioned through the voice of Theo, that's exactly how I felt. I watched a show that showed me the best of the world, and I'm just now learning, truly learning how my skin color makes this a very dangerous and awful world sometimes. So I built it from that place.
So when you were dealing, and this is the last question, then I'm going to open it to the audience, but when you were creating, for example, Claire, because we talked about the challenge that she presented in not just in moving beyond her image on the show.
So with the Claire chapter, because I think there are 12 chapters in the book, and they each chronicle the life of this particular moment in their losing the patriarch of their family through all of the characters' eyes, including Eunice Chantilly. I even include the one character that everyone seemed to talk about throughout the entire series, but we never saw, but she clearly had some power over Claire in particular because Cliff was Eunice's boyfriend when Claire met Cliff. And the way they talk about, especially the way Claire talks about Eunice Chantilly. I was like, Claire stole Cliff from Eunice. And we've all done it. We've all been in that relationship, or we took someone from a relationship and we kind of hang on to the guilt a little bit. And I think that's in part why Claire kept bringing Eunice back up, because Eunice is that one that perhaps could give her a run for her money with Cliff. And so what I do with Claire in this is she remains perfect until she grieves and no one is there to be her shoulder because everyone thinks she can manage it because she always has. And in her grieving, in her moment of weakness, in her moment of need, her perfection is her undoing, and it becomes the reason for her loneliness at this point. No one comes by to check on Claire because Claire, she always keeps it together. And I think
this is a demonstration of Wirecast.
It's the softening of Claire that is very purposeful in terms of illustrating that, when the next time you decide to characterize Black women as angry, always strong in the backbone, we are those things, but there's a softness to us too, and we need shoulders, and we need compassion and companionship. And so I think I try to touch on that need to not just see her as this one-dimensional or two-dimensional stock image of perfection. She's a human being, and she needs us.
So at this time, let's have some questions from the audience for Terésa. Yes. Mm-hmm.
I just have a factual question. Did Bill Cosby and his real wife author the script and every one of those episodes, or were there a team of writers?
This
And if
is
so,
a
were they
demonstration of
African-American?
Wirecast.
As far as the show is concerned, there was, over the course of, 9 years, they definitely had a team of writers to write the show. Camille Cosby isn't a writer necessarily. She's a lawyer and she's his manager by trade. Originally, with the Cosby Show, Claire was supposed to be a Latina cleaning lady. The whole idea was that he really
This
wanted
is a
Rita Moreno to
demonstration
play his
of
wife,
Wirecast.
and she was supposed to be this much more blue collar type woman. And Camille said no.
We're not going there.
We're not doing that. Rita, you got Rita on the electric company. She's your anchor there. She's always been your anchor there. And they had this rapport of just really great timing. She would have been awesome.
So you're saying that he would have been a successful doctor
With a Latino
This
blue
is a
collar working.
demonstration of Wirecast.
Oh,
Right.
okay.
And in the pilot episode, actually, she is that. The pilot episode of the Cosby Show with Felicia Rashad in the role, she's a homemaker. They don't talk about her as a lawyer. She wears a light blue top and her hair is in a nice kind of soft cotton ball puff, and she's wearing an apron the entire episode. The next episode, she's got on a power suit that's like royal regal, like purple, and her hair is straightened,
Wirecast.
Yeah.
and 3 episodes later she's speaking fluent Spanish. I mean, that was the thing. And so so no, they didn't write all of the episodes, but certainly Dr. William H. Cosby made sure that the message of aspiration was infused in all of them. One person who was a key contributor to all of the scripts and a consultant to the show was Dr. Alvin Toussaint. Dr. Alvin Toussaint,
Is a
much like
demonstration of Wirecast.
Poussin.
Poussin?
Mhm.
I was gonna say Toussaint. Poussin.
Yeah.
Wrong French name, but
Yeah.
but definitely as a consultant to make sure that presence of respectability was always present.
Thank you.
Yes.
A question, do you think the Cosby Show might have ultimately done a disservice to how the African American community was portrayed, not just for the African American community, but
This
also
is
for
a
the white
demonstration
community?
of Wirecast.
One thing I remember was I was 7 when the Cosby Show came on. I loved the show. I grew up in a white household. My grandma, bless her soul, was the biggest racist in the world. She liked Huxtable. She liked
Exactly.
Bill Cosby.
Exactly.
And I can remember in early 2000, I was really shocked. Bill Cosby made a bunch of statements that I thought were very cruel towards African-American single mothers. I remember there was one infamous one where he said, if a kid's gonna go and steal cake or something like that, and he's arrested by the police.
This is a
and I remember
demonstration
my
of
critics were
Wirecast.
saying that this was really myopic, to say the least, as to the issues that surround the African-American community. But there was this very big idea, particularly amongst conservatives, Bill Cosby's right. Like, if these mothers would raise their kids right and teach them not to steal, this would be the end of the problem. And I thought when I got older that the Cosby Show kind of sent that myth home. Like, bad mothers was kind of the unspoken thing, or bad parents.
This is a demonstration
Yeah, I
of
remember
Wirecast.
during that time, my publisher is Doubleday and Random House, and he was America's Dad. He was writing all these books about how to raise great kids, how to be a great father, husband, blah, blah, blah. And one of the editors at the company told me that when he would get his royalty checks, there wasn't enough money, there wasn't enough space on the check for the zeros. Okay? I mean, he was making tons of money.
This is a demonstration
And,
of
after
Wirecast.
you answer that, I'd like also to talk about what we talked about in terms of the reality of the positive things that Bill Cosby actually did do in the community that to some extent are getting lost because of the obvious issues around the criminal behavior.
Absolutely.
So her question was about the portrayal did it actually hurt the Black community?
Sure. It's a double-edged
This is a
sword.
demonstration
I think if
of
you right
Wirecast.
now were to go, if you were to find 20 people, 20 Black people, and ask to go home with them, go visit their mama, you'll go to 20 different homes. You won't go to 2 homes that are the same. So let's say the Huxtable family, that's genuinely what you get. Like, I know families that do look like that, and that's their world. The thing with Bill Cosby, he made a choice. And the choice for him was, I'm going to illustrate
This is a
a
demonstration
family
of Wirecast.
that shows that race in America doesn't have to be what it is. You don't have to look at another Black person and assume they're going to jail or to beat you up over the head or rob your shoes off your feet. I'm going to show you something that you've never seen before. And in that respect, it was welcome and it was a relief, because there were so many of us who go, I think I do identify more with that. The great
This
thing
is a
about the
demonstration
late 80s, and I
Wirecast.
think going, or actually better with the 90s in television, is that we start to see a broader scope of stories. So we ended up with Rock and Martin and Living Single and these other tales of Black life in America that also spoke a truth that perhaps their truth, or the Cosby truth, or the Huxtable truth didn't illustrate. For instance, you take A Different World did multiple episodes on the effects
This
of
is a
HIV in the
demonstration
Black
of
community, and the
Wirecast.
fact that it wasn't just, they were the first show to illustrate on television, period, that it wasn't just a gay disease, that Black women were contracting HIV, people who were using drugs, sharing needles, were contracting HIV before anyone. And that was still a part of his narrative, a part of his lexicon of work, right? On A Different World, you're dealing with young Black people in love and in
This is
school
a demonstration
and
of Wirecast.
dealing with racism, dealing with colorism. So the double-edged sword being, sure, as a standalone show, and if that's the only thing you watch and say this represents all of Black people in total, okay, well, there's probably a problem with that thinking anyway. But if you're going to choose that as the one show, then yeah, you're only going to see one flavor of us. But if you watch that show, In A Different World, and Martin, and and all the shows that
This
came
is
from
a
that time
demonstration
period, I
of
think you get more of a
Wirecast.
microcosm of what Black Americans look like, or what Americans look like that happen to be Black.
And when we were talking earlier, you said, I thought it was just so amazing when you said that show, A Different World, was responsible for so many Black kids going to college.
Going to college.
Yeah.
I think this is a great statement in that this is why I wrote this book, because being someone who survived sexual assault in my life, the moment
This
the
is a
first woman
demonstration
said
of
she
Wirecast.
was sexually assaulted, I was like, yeah, that happened. No doubt in my mind. I just don't choose not to doubt a person if that's a hard lie to tell. That's a really difficult lie to tell. But then when woman number 3, number 5, number 10, 20, 50, I don't care what their character is or the individuals, 50 women aren't lying.
This is a demonstration
Right?
of Wirecast.
So then I go, okay, where do I stand with this? Where do I stand when I have in one hand, I learned my ABCs and how to negotiate bullies on the playground because of Fat Albert and the Cosby kids. And I learned how to enjoy my siblings because of the Huxtables. And I am of a different world. And you leverage that against this horrible
This is a
thing, and I go, these
demonstration
are
of
they're
Wirecast.
two separate people. I need to do the work of healing to do that separation, and this is my tool. And that's then how that took off. I would love to, if there's time towards the end, read the very last chapter of this. It's not as long as the first one, but I would like to share that. I think it'll wrap up this whole thing when we get there. We have a question on we have a question on the live.
Demonstration of
Hey.
So
Wirecast.
Joyce Williams is asking specifically about your decision and how you ended Denise's chapter. It was very clear Olivia needed her at the home, but you did not bring her back. And can you talk a little bit about that?
Sure. Thank you, Joyce Williams. Ms. Williams is actually one of my students at PGCC, and so all 3 of my classes have been instructed to tune in. I know who's watching. I got eyes.
There are 6 people watching, by the way.
Oh,
Yeah.
so 3 classes, only 6 people? Yeah. No, they have this is also going to be archived on YouTube, so they can watch it over the weekend also. So, but thank you to those 6 that are watching. Okay, so with Denise's chapter, I made that chapter a little bit more volatile than I think people had anticipated. Volatile meaning I kind of used echoes of Lisa Bonet's relationship with Bill Cosby and infused it into
of Wirecast.
Denise's relationship with Cliff. And there's this running line that goes through that chapter, this isn't sad for everyone. And when she leaves the gravesite, so the one season where Lisa Bonet was not on the show, but in the opening credits, Bill Cosby holds a picture of her, a black and white photo of her. It's the one where everyone's in the top hats and bow ties, and it's whoop, 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 that one.
This is a demonstration of Wirecast.
To illustrate that she's still a part of the family, he held a black and white photo of her in a pewter frame, and he drops it and his top hat, and he just scampers off. She pulls that photo and that frame out of her purse and lays it in the dirt next to the grave, and she tells the grave digger, you can go ahead and put it in with the rest. And what we see is, Denise in her eclectic, sort of eccentric self, she wasn't as accepted as the rest of the Huxtables as a character on the show, but then also as Lisa Bonet, in the choices that she made as a full-grown woman. So those kind of mimic each other and echo each other. I'm going to say to Joyce, keep reading, because I do resolve that in a later chapter, in Olivia's chapter. I do resolve what the choice that she makes there.
Okay, this lady.
Yes. Could
This
you
is a
share with us some
demonstration of Wirecast.
publishing process that you went through?
Oh, absolutely. Well, first of all, I self-published. I used a company called Blurb Books. I called upon colleagues of mine, friends of mine, to not only help me edit and try to find all the typos. I even today found 2 more typos, and I was like, why did I ask you to do this? You were no help. But I ended up also in that process getting an amazing foreword from Dr. Darnell Walker, who's also a son of Charlottesville. He's actually in South Africa right now as we speak, promoting his latest documentary, Seeking Asylum, looking at what traveling the world looks like for a Black man, and perhaps even as an option post these current elections. So the film was supposed to be an active kind of docudrama, and it turned into a full-fledged documentary. He's been excited about being invited into every film festival you can think of. So he's in South Africa today, as a matter of fact. And he wrote the foreword to this about being in a confined space where 2 people share a singular space. He was falsely arrested in Florida some years ago and put in a jail cell, a small jail cell with Darnell's kind of lanky and skinny, and he was put into a jail cell with a guy who looked a lot like him, but twice as big, really bulky, and incredibly dangerous. And outside of that small space, people will look at the 2 of them and see virtually the same person. And so he wrote a foreword about what it means for 2 bodies to share the same space, and making that analogy to Cliff and Bill. The prologue was written by a spoken word artist by the name of Slam, Slam the poet, and she wrote a prologue that mimicked in a lot of ways the
This
opening
is a
credits
demonstration
to
of
the
Wirecast.
episodes of the Cosby Show. So she wrote something that felt more like spoken word. She's Afro-Latina, so it has some jazz, some kind of, it just has the elements and the heat that you would, the flavors you would see every season in the opening sequence, the opening credits of the Cosby Show. I mean, we'd wait until the season premiere to go, how are they going to do it this time?
Yeah.
And so she paid homage to that in a prologue, and then the epilogue was written by one of my
This is a
former professors and a
demonstration of
great mentor of
Wirecast.
mine, the Reverend Dr. Carolyn Gordon. She wrote as an epilogue the eulogy of Dr. Cliff Huxtable, and when she emailed it to me, I wept because then it was real. Like for me, up until that point, and working on the blog site and then taking it off the blog and writing the book, and really deciding after, because at first it was just going to be an ebook. I was just like, I'm just making an
This is a
ebook, and
demonstration
then
of
talking to my wife
Wirecast.
Michelle, who's sitting here and doing all the things. She goes, I said, I think I have about 200 pages of material. Like, she goes, yeah, you wrote a novel by accident. And so we just kind of kept going down that path. And when Dr. Gordon sent me the epilogue, I called her and we cried together on the phone, and he became real. It wasn't that he wasn't real,
This is
but
a
by
demonstration
eulogizing
of
him,
Wirecast.
there was an element of reality to it. That said, I've used Blurb, now for about 5 years. This is my second novel, my 5th book. I've published 2 coffee table books of photography. I just shot a wedding in DC. Well, this couple got married 3 times in a matter of 3 months. They had a private ceremony for the 2 of them, a
This
semi-private
is a demonstration
ceremony
of
for their
Wirecast.
immediate family, and then a big to-do at Abraham Lincoln's cottage in DC. A beautiful lesbian couple deciding to get married at Abraham. I had to be the photographer. And so I documented it in a book, also using Blurb. And it's just an awesome resource if you feel like the work that you do might be on the outside of the scope of your traditional publishers. There's a lot of work on your part
This is a
you
demonstration
don't have
of Wirecast.
you don't have the push and the support of a mainstream publisher. I don't have a Random House or Doubleday. I would love it, but I also love being my own boss and marketing and promoting my own books. My books show up on Amazon with all the rest. I sell them also on my website, on Blurb's website. And Blurb also offers a service where you can have your book in the Barnes & Noble website. And so this book is anywhere any
This
other
is
book
a demonstration of
is
Wirecast.
realized. It's just that I will say though, and I would love to suggest to the Virginia Festival of the Book something on self-publishing. The need to edit, to have someone else's eyes on it, that's the big thing. That's been my Achilles heel, quite frankly, because I'm a card-carrying control freak. And I'll be like, oh, it's perfect with 17 typos. With self-publishing, you just need to build your team to have eyes on it. But it's a great opportunity
This is a
to always be
demonstration of
published.
Wirecast.
I wonder if you can answer her question.
What was it?
She asked, Ms. Golden asked a question in regards to Bill Coffey, philanthropy,
Sure. Oh, yeah.
type of thing.
We did.
Yeah,
But I
but
also have a
positive.
question in terms of I have a lot of questions, but one of the questions that I wonder how Camille is doing and how she has taken this
This
issue.
is a demonstration of
Does
Wirecast.
she know about the issue? Is she sympathetic towards the issue? It kind of feel like Bill Cosby after a while had a spell on people. Maybe because of his demeanor, but it appears that he had a spell on the country.
So he also had
combined with Cliff Huxtable and Bill Cosby.
This is a demonstration of
I
Wirecast.
think he was loved, but where the hate come from, the hate might come from now. The hate might have always been there with white folks, without giving them a chance because he was black. But I'm interested in the answer to your question to her.
Well, in terms of philanthropy, there was that $20 million gift to Spelman College.
Right.
Okay. And then went to Warner Brawley, that very challenging, difficult
This is a
case.
demonstration
He
of
was one of the
Wirecast.
first people
To step
to
forward.
step
and-
forward. And this is the kind of thing, when people talk about reality being so much stranger than fiction, this is a man who at that time, we can assume, was serially raping women. And he steps forward to defend the honor of a young black woman who alleges that she was raped, and then it turns out that she was not. I mean, this is the kind of thing that you simply cannot make
This
up.
is a demonstration of Wirecast.
But I think that, and this is why this whole issue is so fascinating, because it's not just that he was, like America's dad. He was a very, very influential cultural figure. In the 60s and 70s, he and Harry Belafonte were making black movies. They were, even before the politics of respectability, they were, black power, empowerment. He was the man.
This is
Okay.
a demonstration of
And
Wirecast.
so that's another reason it is so hard for many people, even people who didn't, like you raised in the 70s, 80s, to just comprehend this. But the human psyche is a puzzle, and we can't know what was going on. We cannot know that.
That's what I was going to say, actually. When you said, how does Camille feel this and that? If Camille's not saying, it ain't for me to speculate.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I think that's a very powerful
This is a
thing to
demonstration
take a look at,
of
if we're going to look at
Wirecast.
it, is the fact that she's not talking. He goes to the courthouse and turns himself in Pennsylvania, and this is the first time we see her not by his side. That spoke volumes to me. But what speaks even more loudly is the fact that she's not saying anything. And I think her role as his wife, she's choosing that and saying, I will hold your secrets, and I will keep your confidence, because that's my relationship
This is a
to you.
demonstration of Wirecast.
And that's fine for them. And I think that also speaks to the fact that we don't know these people. And it's not our job to know them.
Exactly.
It's not up to me to determine whether, honestly, it's not up to me to determine whether or not Bill Cosby did anything. I don't have any control over that. It's just not my space. And I think at some point, when I realized my allegiance to Bill Cosby is Cliff Huxtable. That's the only thing that really connects us at the end of the day. That's why
This is
I
a
go to
demonstration
this.
of
You went
Wirecast.
creative, I'm gonna go creative. But this whole thing with the women and everything, I just can't try to explain it on your behalf. I can't try to figure it out how Camille's feeling, because I just don't know. And that speaks to why I even did this. I don't know these people.
So let's at this point, because we want to save time for book signing and individual conversation with you. Want to read the epilogue? Or
The
the last
the
chapter.
last
Demonstration
chapter.
of
The
Wirecast.
last chapter is Cliff.
Okay.
Okay. Chapter 12, Cliff. The house is quiet. Tonight, Cliff and Claire plan to enjoy the quiet together. Wearing his gray and maroon Temple University t-shirt and jeans, Cliff comes down into the living room and turns on the television. He is waiting for Claire to return home with the crabs
This is a
for the late
demonstration of
summer seafood
Wirecast.
fest for 2. While he waits, the newscaster reports. Beloved professor of political science, Alexander Scott, has passed away. Former CIA agent and Hollywood spy films advisor, Scott served as a consultant on the I Spy film with Eddie Murphy and Owen Wilson. Cliff flips the channel. No bad news today. Flipping a couple more channels, Cliff lands on another news report. Today, thousands of mourners light candles
This
and
is a
leave signs and
demonstration
cards
of
of
Wirecast.
condolences for the 16-year-old African-American male shot in Philadelphia by Philadelphia police in a mistaken identity case last night. William Glover Jr., better known as Little Bill, in his North Philly community was gunned down and is the latest in a string of unarmed black youth killed by police. The hashtag Little Bill has quickly gone viral and trending on social media. Cliff flips the channel. No bad news
This
today.
is a demonstration of
Flipping a
Wirecast.
few more channels, Cliff lands on the report of a school set in an old utility company building closing its doors. The electric company charter school is finally folding after years of alternative and arts education for children of all ethnicities and backgrounds. Led by Dr. Albert Jackson, the electric company has not been able to bounce back after the school suffered the worst gun tragedy in Philadelphia history last year. The gunman,
This
Leonard
is a
Six,
demonstration
as he
of
called himself in his
Wirecast.
manifesto, entered the electric company school with a semi-automatic weapon and killed Dr. Albert Jackson and 6 other faculty members. Once called Fat Albert in the North Philadelphia community he called home, Dr. Jackson and his close friends opened the electric company charter school to foster a current of learning, a jolt in excitement, and stimulating energy for a personal care and education. By having the people of the
This is a
neighborhood teach in
demonstration
their
of
own school.
Wirecast.
The school housed 2 academies. Darndest Things Grade School for students pre-K to the 7th grade, and A Different World High School for 8th grade to 12th graders. The teachers who perished in the attack were Dr. Owen Mushmouth Johnson, Donald Smart, William Cosby, Russell Cosby, Harold Smith, Rudolph Rudy Davis, and Bucky Hanks. No students were harmed
This
as
is a
school had not
demonstration of
opened for the fall
Wirecast.
term, but it seems the school will remain closed and the children will be placed in the city's public schools. Cliff flips the channel. No bad news today. Flipping the channels up one station, Cliff watches the news of a local man who was killed in Queens this morning. Former airline agent and Queens resident Hilton Lucas dies from his injuries as his car is struck by a Cosby Enterprises freight train. No word on if any other
This is
persons
a
were Cliff
demonstration of
mutes the television.
Wirecast.
What is happening in this world? How can I escape the bad news? No bad news today. Maybe I should just turn off the television. That's it. I'll turn it off and live my day off, my one day off in happiness. Cliff looks at the remote in his hand and he hits the power button to turn the television off. Rather than turning off, the volume unmutes. Cliff looks at the remote thinking he must have hit the wrong button and presses the power button again. This time the television advances to
This is a
another channel.
demonstration
Today,
of
in the latest
Wirecast.
case, Cliff presses the power button again, a new channel. Of the bill, Cliff presses the button again, a different channel. Cosby rape, power button, new channel. Allegations, 5 more women, power button, new channel, have come forward, power button, new channel, and have accused Cosby of power button. The television finally shuts off and rests with a black screen. Cliff is sitting still on his couch looking at the dark screen, which now serves as a blackened mirror
This is a
in which Cliff
demonstration
can
of
see his own
Wirecast.
reflection. I simply cannot take word of bad news. I cannot listen to yet another account of that lousy Cosby fella assaulting all those women. If I thought someone had sullied any of my daughters in such a way, I would kill him. I know I took that Hippocratic oath and whatnot, but I would kill him dead. 5 more women? Like, what is he up to now? 30? 40? Cliff gets up from the
This
couch
is a
and he raises,
demonstration of
and as
Wirecast.
he rises, he feels a sharp pain in his chest. Oh. The pain passes, as it had many times during the string, as it has had many of these stings before, 30, 40 maybe. He takes another step towards the kitchen door, and with another sharp pain shoots through his chest. Cliff grabs and clenches his chest as he's having another heart attack, but this one feels deeper
This
and more
is a
painful than the
demonstration
others.
of
He turns towards
Wirecast.
his desk near the door, hoping to make his way to the telephone and call the ambulance. As Cliff stumbles his way to the staircase, he loses his grip on the banister and falls hard to the floor. Oh my God, not today. Just give me one more day to say goodbye to everyone, to my children, my wife, not today. Don't let this be the last day I see, and it be the news of that monster. Let me see my wife's face and hear her voice. Let me tell my son how good a man he is and that I'm proud of
This is a
him. Let me
demonstration
look
of
upon my
Wirecast.
daughters and thank them for making me a better man every day. Let me hold the hands of my grandchildren. Let me. Cliff hears the back door open in the kitchen. Claire's home from the store, and in the same breath Cliff uses to call his wife, another lightning hot pain pierces his heart. Please, God, no, he whispers. Cliff hears his wife call for him, but he has not the energy to reach back to her with his voice. As the room grows darker and
This
fuzzier,
is
he
a
sees a young
demonstration
woman
of
walking towards
Wirecast.
him. She is wearing a green prom dress. She is calling his name. This beautiful shape in green is running towards him. Cliff is only able to move his eyes, and with them he sees a lake and a green hill and this beautiful shape of flowing fabric running over. He calls the name in a whisper, Claire? The flowing form is calling his name, but it isn't his name, Bucky. Cliff whispers, Claire?
This is a
Suddenly his
demonstration of
body is turned
Wirecast.
over and Claire, 17 years old in a peach sweater, is sitting next to him as he is laying on his back. She is looking into his face, smiling. The 17-year-old vision of Claire says to Cliff, do you want to go back to the Navy, Cliff? Can't you stay? Cliff responds, Claire, don't let them keep me this time. Let me come home. I'm tired. I don't want to stay there. Don't let them keep me. Claire, promise me. I want to come home.
This is a
Claire
demonstration of
says, I
Wirecast.
promise. Cliff looks over at the flowing form, continuing to walk in his direction. Eunice? I'm here, Bucky, reassures Eunice. He has not seen his first girlfriend in 50 years, and here she is, sitting in his bedroom. A brief rush of panic and confusion whips through Cliff. There is no way Claire would let this happen. Who let this woman in our home, in our bedroom? Cliff tries to sit up. He is in his bed, and his body aches
This
in
is
all
a
possible
demonstration of
places. He
Wirecast.
can feel his life slipping away. After all the attacks on his body, his mind, his heart, Cliff seems ready to let this life go. Call Claire, Cliff whispers. Eunice slowly nods in agreement and leaves Cliff's side to get Claire. Claire comes into the room. Yes, Cliff. It's time. Are you sure? Confirms Claire.
This is
Yeah,
a
I'm
demonstration of Wirecast.
Bucky, I'm gonna go. Eunice steps back to Cliff's opposite side. He holds his hand. I wish you a loving departure and all my gratitude and love, Bucky. Eunice releases Cliff's hand and leaves the room, closing the door behind her. Claire pulls up a chair next to Cliff, and Cliff says to his wife, Wondrous Love. You want me to sing Wondrous Love? Yes. But before I do,
This is a demonstration
Cliff
of
takes Claire's hand.
Wirecast.
For the last 50 years of my life, for the best 50 years of my life, you have been the breath of my life. You have lived my whole life I have lived my whole life loving you. And thank you, Claire Hanks Huxtable, for loving me. Thank you for our children. Thank you for dancing with me, singing to me, and the Spanish. Claire smiles. She leans towards her husband and whispers.
This is a demonstration of Wirecast.
She slowly kisses him on the lips. Cliff closes his eyes and allows the tears to roll off the side of his face. Now, I'm ready. Wondrous Love. In the darkness behind his eyes, Cliff can hear his wife singing his favorite hymn. As he drifts away, the song begins to fade and is replaced with the soundtrack of his life. his children's voices, talking
This
and
is a
laughing,
demonstration of
singing and playing.
Wirecast.
Baby's first wails, the sound of his parents bidding him welcome, all underscored by the loving serenade of the sweetest soul he'd ever known. In the darkness behind Cliff's eyes, he settles into a deep sleep and then fades away from his life. Thank you so much.
So now we're gonna
This is
sell
a
some books and just don't
demonstration of
forget to fill
Wirecast.
out the evaluation. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you so much. I appreciate you. Oh, thank you so much.